Thank you everybody for showing up bright and early. My name is Chris, and obviously I work for Xsolla. I just want to take a moment to note about that video. We really try to portray how we make an emotional connection to help everybody run the business of their games, right? And it's a real mission of ours that we want to make sure that people that have great ideas, that are making great games, can actually get those games out to the people that want to play them and see some success with that. So that's kind of an underpinning of our entire mission, where we want to help everybody. We want to bring opportunities together. We want to give you all the opportunities you need to succeed with the business of your games. And on that note, today, I'm going to kick things off by just talking a little bit about where the industry is, what some of the trends are that we're seeing, some of the things that maybe you could think about if you're looking to run the business of your games. So really, this is just a primer to kick off the whole day of all of our meetings and kind of, give you some context, some thoughts to figure out, hey, maybe there's some things I haven't thought about when it comes to running the whole business of my games. So the industry, where we are, where we've been, all that good stuff. So I will flip my clicker around and start off with kind of a statement, right? Gaming is bigger than ever, right? We know that. Gaming continues to grow. I know we've heard a lot in the media lately about how gaming is slowed down. Maybe gaming is kind of hitting a point where it's retracting. We're not seeing that. We're still seeing strong growth in the industry. We're seeing not the hyper growth that maybe we saw in previous years where you had double-digit growth and hyper growth through the industry, but we're still seeing strong growth that is ahead of inflation, 9, 10, 11% growth. And in this whole paradigm, we want to figure out who's going to own the future of game distribution. And that question may seem odd, but I'll dive into it a little bit in a moment. But we really have entered a phase in the business of games where distribution is so critical to the success of your games. So before I go into all of that, we'll talk about where are we. So games, we're looking at 3 billion people on the planet are playing games by 2029 is what the estimates are, potentially even sooner. With all of that, and it's really important to notice what goes hand in hand with this, is talking about the industry demographics. By the way, I'm going to pause. All of this stuff, we go so much deeper in our State of Play report, so I would encourage everybody, and I'll throw a URL up at the end of the presentation, to engage with our report. We have, it's 100 pages or so of actual data, not just supposition, but we give real data, real insights that back all of this up. We get into regions, we get into different player profiles, all of that. But what's really important to note here is that the next generation of gamers have really shifted from gaming just as a pastime to really being engagement focused. And it's not just about Gen Z or Gen Alpha, it's about all the new roles of engagement. You look at, I think, some of the comparisons when it comes to engagement with other media platforms. We're in an age now where you look at how people engage with TikTok, Fortnite Creative, UGC on Roblox and other systems. There's this real sort of paradigm where the consumer and the creator have converged. And the companies that really take advantage of that, the companies that are like, okay, my consumers, my players are also creators for my game, are the ones that are really going to benefit from this. And it really lines up with the younger generations and how they perceive engaging with games. And we're seeing that bear out, right? We're seeing the companies that are succeeding are the ones that are being very open with the communities, that are giving communities the ability to actually create in the games, to promote the games. And that is something really important that I think anybody making a game these days needs to think about. In the past, it used to be, I make a game, and then I'll build a community, maybe close to launch, and it'll be unidirectional. I'll just talk to the community, tell them what the value proposition of the game is, and then they'll buy it. We're past that now. It's really bi-directional, where the companies that engage from the very beginning with their communities, make those communities part of development, part of the creator, journey on getting that game to market, are the ones that are really benefiting. And, why is this important? 90% of Gen Z and Gen Alpha are playing games. They're engaging with games. This is their hobby. It's their pastime. It is, as I tell my kids, it is kind of the currency on the playground of how they interact with their friends and talk with everybody. So really leaning into this and giving those players the ability to promote the game, to feel that they've, contributed to the game is incredibly important. We also see that 79% of the players out there in these younger generations are actually engaging with UGC platforms. So I'm not saying everybody has to run out and build a UGC platform, right? We know that's incredibly difficult. There's a lot of hardships on that, but it doesn't have to be just about the platform. It can be about how you provide things for your community. Do you give them the ability to create content to help promote the game, to show off what they're doing, to gain status, right, with their friends? This is incredibly important, and it's all part of this new generation. And we feel that, the companies that are going to do this are really going to succeed. And there's like little tiny eye chart thingies on here about the percentages of who engages with what platforms. But again, this is all lifted right out of our report. All right, so getting into the key of it, what are the big trends, right, that we're watching? We talked a little bit about where the industry is. It's growing, it's huge, it's continuing to grow, it's entering a mature phase. Great. That means that companies shift from hypergrowth to margin improvements. Awesome. All of that. But what are the real trends within this that we're seeing? So as I mentioned, direct to consumer, I think this is something that we're really at the cusp of this becoming potentially the dominant model for how businesses can succeed. Obviously, Apple and Fortnite Epic with Apple, they kind of had that whole lawsuit that led to a lot of changes, and there's the regulations that are happening and all of that. There's instant play anywhere. So what I mean by that is cloud gaming. And I'm not saying cloud gaming is this whole new platform and a whole new paradigm that you only make cloud games, but really cloud gaming is entering its second wave, where it's a powerful, powerful feature that you can use as part of promoting your game. The ability for people to play your game anywhere, to test it out. Depending on how long you've been in the industry, you may remember way back in the day, games used to have to always release demos, and you would have to make these demos that you would get out to like all the stores. It was a huge pain in the butt, but it did actually engage players, gave them a taste of the game ahead of time. Cloud is an amazing way for you to get out there and actually share your games with players, even during development, very early on. And then there's also new business models with cloud, where pay as you play is a really important thing, and I'll talk more about that later. Ease of use is another very, very important trend. And when I say ease of use, it's, of course, from Xsolla, I'm talking about payments and how, there's an increased desire for ease of use with payments, reducing friction. Digital wallets are a very, very big thing for players now. Over 50% of players use digital wallets, and those are things like Apple Pay and, a wallet that can actually transfer anywhere. 77% of, and this is really an interesting stat, why are digital wallets and alternative payments important? If you look at Latin America, 77% of the players do not have credit cards, but they're able to use alternative payments to either put them into a digital wallet or to use those directly to engage with your game. So ease of use is important, and it also goes over beyond just the payment side of it. We know that ease of use is important when it comes to engaging with a game and how you build that game. Talk more about that later. And then finally, engaging through loyalty. So rewarding players for playing your games is incredibly powerful, incredibly important. We are seeing a resurgence now in the idea of, okay, how do we reward players for their engagement? How do we take that and sort of take it to the next level? We all know that loyalty drives engagement. Games with VIP programs, exclusive perks, in-game bonuses, they all see players spending 30% more on average, proving that if they feel rewarded for their loyalty, they're going to return that reward back to you in the form of more commerce, more engagement, more paying in the game. So I'll go through each of these individually kind of quickly here. So direct to consumer. it's really important to think that we have shifted from just a one direction distribution model to really a ecosystem. And this ecosystem includes direct to consumer, building your own sites, building your own communities, also engaging with creators. There's so much that you can do evolving your game beyond just being on a platform. By the way, platforms are great. I'm not saying people should ditch them, but you should think of how are you evolving your business beyond just the platforms, because it opens up the ability to engage with so much more. Creator driven is a big, big thing. Direct to consumer strategies, we are seeing that they drive up to 16% increases in incremental revenue. Why is that? So we all know e-commerce, right? There's so much power with e-commerce where you can create personalized offers. You can do live ops in your direct to consumer e-commerce by running different promotions weekly, various price points, behavioral pricing. You can understand where a player is, what they might want, what offer is going to actually be most appealing to them. There's so much that you can do by going direct that you can't do through a platform, and this increases just your overall revenue. A lot of people ask, well, is it cannibalizing revenue? It's really not, right? You're actually moving these players over. The ones that you're moving over are going to spend more. They're going to engage more with your game. Community-driven development, part of this going direct to consumer allows you to actually talk with your players. You get all of the data. You get a full data stack. So when you go through a platform, you lose a ton of data that's just locked off. It's not available to you. When you go direct, you actually get to fully understand who your player is, and that allows you to create better offers for them to understand what they're enjoying, what they value, and again, target them and give them things that are going to be of higher value to them, but also higher value to you. And we think that the final piece of this is going direct to consumer also allows you to really engage with influencers and doing an influencer-driven commerce. And what I mean by that is we all know the different influencers out there, right? Like Mr. Beast and whatever, all the different. I'm not cool enough to know everybody's names of all the influencers, but we know that they're out there. We're seeing a real trend where they are starting to spin up their own stores, and they want the opportunity to sell your games to their players with additional content that's unique to them. This is a huge opportunity, right? That is untapped and right here in front of us that you could take advantage of to really drive more for the business of your games. And, let me back up. Sorry. Right, so we talked all about that. Distribution fees. I did not cover fees. We all know when you go onto platforms, you're paying huge fees, 30%, right, potentially of your revenue that comes right off the top. If you go direct to consumer, you're looking at 5 to 10% of your revenue going to the fees to actually run that business, more money in your pocket. Okay, another trend is instant play anywhere. So this is just a fancy way of saying cloud is back. And we all know that the first round of cloud gaming kind of, it was cool, but it really didn't succeed. Part of that is because companies were trying to promote that as its own platform. Like, hey, this is the next platform. It's the next mobile platform. Go on to cloud, all of that. But it really didn't have a compelling business model, didn't have a good value proposition for players. But we are now seeing that this is changing. So cloud, I would, recommend that everybody truly look at this and think of it as a feature, right? Not just a whole standalone platform, but this is a feature that can help your business, and it can help it in a number of ways. So one of them is just increasing top of funnel. By getting your game out and distributed early as you build your community through the cloud, you can let people play your game, engage with your game all over the world, right? So it's a great top of funnel acquisition tool that is really low cost. People can kind of play a little bit of the game, get a taste for it, and then either sign up on your wish lists or, you get their emails, they'll commit to buying the game later. So these instant play experiences are really replacing traditional demos that I mentioned earlier. And the try before you buy model is very, very important. And beyond that, cloud allows people to really reduce a lot of the friction that comes to being able to consume high definition, high quality games. One of the things that we're seeing is companies are kind of succeeding by not taking a single cloud approach, but one of the things that we do is we actually create a cloud platform that for the user, it's just a single cloud login. But on the back end, it's matching that user up with the proper cloud infrastructure for where they are, so they have a great experience, low cost, all of that. And then just in addition, it is growing. So 22 billion is what we estimate by 2028. But again, I would think that, or I'd recommend if you're thinking about cloud, think of it as a try before you buy model, pay as you play, a way to really open up that top of funnel and engage more players worldwide. Ease of use. Okay, so this is a big one. So ease of use encompasses so many things. Payments is a big part of it. So we're the people that think about payments. A lot of people don't think about payments, but there's a lot of friction for people all over the world to trying to use their own unique local payment methods. We're now seeing an increasing trend of that being sort of made a lot easier through digital wallets, where we're all familiar with Apple Pay, but there's many, many more digital wallets that are spinning up where people can just put their information in once and then they can use that digital wallet at checkout with whatever system they're using. So that's something that we are big proponents on. We are integrated with 1,000 different payment methods now, but we are big into allowing our players to use whatever digital wallet that they're already engaged with. And this reduces tons of friction. We see that next year or 2 years from now, 61% of global e-commerce transactions are actually going to go through digital wallets. What does that mean? That means instead of your player having to enter a credit card number on your, on your checkout, they just click on whatever digital wallet they have and it automatically transacts for them. So it's a huge growing thing. It's the predominant way that players are actually spending. Alternative payment methods are also super critical, and these are getting easier to use as well. And they do tie back to digital wallets. Also, 77% of gamers in Latin America don't have credit cards. So it's really difficult for them if you don't have another option for them to use their local payment methods through a wallet or through some other sort of integration. You're just not going to be able to capture their business. And we know that all of this drives engagement and it drives higher lifetime value. And we know that this reduction of friction, of making it easier for people, the ease of use to actually transact with your game, engage with your game, drives higher incremental revenue. This one drives, as I said before, I think 16% incremental revenue growth. But ease of use goes beyond just payments, beyond commerce. We're seeing a growing trend of companies really refocusing on that sort of first-time user flow. How are you getting players into your game? How are you making it easier for them to engage with the different gameplay mechanics that you have? How are they going to benefit from the game? So there's a real move, and I think part of this is coming from the fact that we had a lot of new gamers come in over the past few years, especially from the pandemic. They're maturing. They're not hardcore gamers, but if you can on-ramp them through making things easier for them at the top of that funnel, whether it's payments, gameplay mechanics, progression, whatever, you're going to see a lot of benefits on the back end. And mobile, at the end of the day, is sort of the poster child of people wanting ease of use. So frictionless transactions are really important for mobile. So ease of use, think of how you can make the life easier for your gamers is a big trend that we're seeing, and it goes straight to your bottom line. And all right, engaging through loyalty. So we have all these new players, they're engaging with your games, you've made it easy for them to, get into your game. What's important next is really rewarding them for their loyalty. And a lot of you may remember from back in the day on mobile, and even before mobile, there were offer walls, which were a great way of rewarding players for engaging with your game. We see a big opportunity for that again now, especially as people are going outside of the platforms. The ability to reward players for loyalty, whether it's through offer walls, through special offers, any of it. And we see that gamers who engage in loyalty programs are spending 30% more in-game compared to non-gamers, non-loyalty members. And you can see here, there's the different day retention numbers. So, on our D7, the people that are not engaged in the loyalty program are only at almost 14% of converting to payers, whereas the ones that are being engaged with loyalty programs are over 50%. And this continues as you go through the entire life cycle of the game. So, really think of ways that you can reward your players, recognize the loyalty. There might be old models like offer walls that are coming back that can really help with that. So this is a big trend, I think, that we're going to see when we all know it, that engagement is a hot topic, right? How do you keep your players engaged? People tend to think of it a lot through gameplay, but I would encourage you to think about it just in addition to gameplay. How are you rewarding them beyond that, right? How are you giving them special rewards for actually transacting with your game, coming back to the game, looking at your store, whatever it may be. And we know that this leads to sustainable growth. And another big part of this is subscription-based models. We know that battle passes, VIP memberships, all of those lead to higher lifetime value, lower churn. And one of the big stats, and I am looking down at my chart here, so excuse me, is that web shops, that offer exclusive rewards, and we see this, by the way, we're huge in the web shop business. We see that web shops that offer exclusive rewards are increasing player retention by up to 70%, right? So they're keeping their players engaged in the games, even though they're transacting outside of the game. So big opportunity. We go really into depth on this in our state of play report. And then, I think we got to talk about the challenges that the industry is facing. So we talked about the trends, right? The opportunities, the things for you to think about with direct to consumer, with loyalty, with ease of use, all of that, right? So really think about those things. But you also have to be aware of the challenges that we're facing. So there's multiple challenges. So fragmentation is a huge challenge. So we call it monetization fragmentation. And what we mean by that is there are so many different payment methods that people are using these days. As I said, we're working directly with 1,000 different payment methods right around the world. 1,000. You look at a platform may have 10, 20, right? So there are so many different ways that consumers are spending on the things that they like. And it's very fragmented. It has really become fragmented. So if you're not thinking about that and you're not looking at how can I allow everybody who plays my game to actually spend on the game if they want to, then you're losing out in a very big way. And part of this is driven by the increased globalization of games, a lot of new markets that are really building up in Middle East, North Africa, Latin America, all of that. They have very different payment methods. As I mentioned, Latin America, 77% of players don't even have credit cards, right? So if you're only relying on credit cards, and it's kind of a first world problem, you think, oh, everybody has what I have. That's not the case. So be aware of fragmentation, build that into your business, figure out how you're going to make it easy, that ease of use for people that are using all of these different ancillary edge case payment methods to actually spend on your game, and you're going to see lift. So another part of that is looking at hybrid models, right? So there's a tendency to focus on just single business models, like you're either free to play or you're either premium. But we really see a lot of opportunity with games that are focusing on a hybrid approach, where they're offering all kinds of different ways for their players to actually spend on the games. And there are some players that are gonna, they're happy to pay full price battle pass, right, every couple of months. But there's others that can't do that. But maybe if you offer a lower price subscription, they can do that, right? And that gives them benefits. So really thinking of not just fragmentation from the payment side, but fragmentation from how your players are actually able to engage with your game on the commerce side, and offering different cohorts. We all like to think of cohorts in how they spend or how they play, but think of cohorts also in what are they able to actually spend, or how are they able to actually engage and offer solutions that appeal to everybody or allow everybody to engage is very, very important. We also have regulatory challenges that are coming up, platform policy changes. I think we're all very aware, hopefully, you're aware that in Europe there's the Digital Markets Act, the Digital Fairness Act, all of that. These things are really early stage precursors to changing how the platforms operate and changing in a positive way for your business, meaning that they're going to open up the ability for you to actually engage with all these different tools and techniques that the platforms don't allow. So, really keeping an eye on what's going on the regulatory front, I think is very important. And being, thinking like, okay, how are we going to prioritize direct sales? How are we going to prioritize the ability to engage directly with our players in certain markets? And eventually that will be global. And then finally, we have, the behavior side of things, where player behavior is shifted and long-term engagement is incredibly important. We've all heard how games are becoming entrenched. People have their forever franchises, all of that. So yes, that's important. This note does not exclude new games either, but I think whether you're a new game or you're an evergreen game, you really need to think, what is the next level of engagement for your players? How are you giving them the ability to personalize their experience? How are you rewarding them? How are you empowering a community to really promote your game and keep it running? And communities are a great way to circumvent discovery issues as well. And all of this leads to really long-term retention. And, we are talking about that in our report also. The report's awesome, tons of stuff in there. And what's ahead? I think if we look at the next decade, I really like to think of this as the decade of the developer. I think previously we've had the decade of platforms. Before that, it was the decade of publishers. But we really are entering a stage where this is our time as a developer, where you have the ability to take control of your own business, connect directly with your players. Your marketing will keep your players in your ecosystem. You'll build communities. You can reward them with loyalty. You can build up all of this goodwill that will keep people engaged with your games. And I think this is incredibly important, especially in a mature stage of this industry where so many things in the news are focused on, the big titles, right? The big titles are the ones that are dominating everything. So if you're in that sort of mid-tier or indie or smaller, how are you actually going to succeed? Well, the good news is you can, just by going direct, engage with those communities early. Think of that almost as a feature when you're designing your game, not an afterthought. And there's so many tools, so many things out there that allow you to do that on the infrastructure and tools side, but also on the creator side. Creators are a huge resource. I mentioned it earlier, but engaging with creators and actually giving them the opportunity to have their own store for your game with some unique content, huge, right? This is a great way to cut through and get your game noticed. So, all of this is to say that the gaming industry is not just growing, right? It truly is evolving. I've talked often about how we're at a stage now where in the past, it was very much you had a creator and you had a consumer. Developers made games, players consumed games. We really are at a point now where that has just completely come together, where creators and consumers are one and the same, whether it's creating new modes for your game, creating mods, creating new assets, or even creating communities and ecosystems for your game. So really think about how are you going to empower those creators to help you grow your business from the beginning is critical. It can't be an afterthought. It can't be something that 3 months before launch, you're like, gee, we should have figured this out. It needs to be early on. And developers who embrace all of this and embrace the direct distribution, alternative monetization and engagement strategies are the ones that really are going to win in this future. And, we really believe in that. That's part of our mission. We like to bring opportunities together for everybody. We like to help you succeed. So if you want to learn more about all of this, just visit our site. We've got tons of information. We have team members here all week. We're over at the Howard. We can share more about all of this. But if I could leave anything with you, if there's one single thing that I would reinforce with all of this, is truly, truly, truly think about direct to consumer. And don't think of it just as I can improve my margins or it's a monetization thing. But what does it really mean for the design of your game? How are you empowering the consumer to be part of that journey with you? And these are the companies that we're seeing succeed, whether it's through web shops that have amazing sort of community features, or whether it's games that are getting out early and taking the time to talk with their players. This is really the path forward. And over the past years, it's been really difficult because platforms don't like that. They kind of restrict it. But that is all falling by the wayside, whether it's regulations, whatever it may be. We really are entering a whole new phase where the power is in your hands to connect directly with your players. So I encourage you all to do that. That's the biggest trend. There's a bunch of other stuff, and check out our report. We'll share more. I think, oh my God, look, there's my little head peeking over the edge. So there's a QR code. If you want to be able to download our report, get all of this great data. I did not do the report justice. We really do go into data based on regions, right? So you can see what kind of genres, what kind of games are performing in different regions, what's important to players on regions, what platforms are dominant in different regions, all of this. So regions, very important. And then the ability to, get some good learnings. We interview a lot of different people from the industry. We have a lot of good interviews in the report as well. So it's not just a sales pitch. We're actually giving actionable advice. So check all of that out. And, I hope you all have a great day. And remember, we're here to bring opportunities together, and we're here to help you. And that's kind of it. And I would love to take some questions if anybody has questions at this point. Hi.
So how do you propose as we're moving into this new economic model that we as developers balance this kind of new system, this new player ecosystem, while balancing the ethics of like being innovations and not wanting to form unhealthy reliance relationships with players?
Yeah, I mean, look, this ethical, monetization, ethical engagement with your players all begins with transparency and open communication, right? I think the people that get in trouble are the ones that kind of do it all in secret, right? And then they roll something out and they're like, oh, we've run a bunch of numbers and we're going to squeeze every dime out of the players that we can. That's not the way to do it. If you engage with your players early and you try to figure out what is the true value proposition for them, right? And then build towards that, that's where the benefit is. So it's not using dark patterns. It's not trying to trick people into near misses, right? To spend on things. It's like, okay, who is the player of my game? What is it that they want to get out of this game? And how can I give more value to them? And that's something that by going direct, you can actually have those conversations and figure out. Going through platforms, a lot of that is just obfuscated. You're not able to actually do that. So I think it's a great question. Ethics and monetization is huge. We know that games that do unethical monetization burn out quickly. Like, you have a very hockey stick kind of and cliff kind of, approach to when you look at the charts. But what you're looking for is that sustained growth over time. And I imagine for all of us, we've got great games, great ideas, but we kind of want to build something that lasts, right? And benefits people. So engage with them, be transparent, look at how you're adding value, not extracting value. And to me, that's the answer.
Thank you. You mentioned on the back end, you guys put users with a proper cloud infrastructure. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How you guys make it work?
Yeah. So look, cloud, I'm chuckling because cloud is, if you've been in the industry long enough, you see it's always some new tech, which is like, oh, this is going to set the world on fire. It's going to be a great new thing. Cloud was one of those things and it kind of flamed out, right? But it doesn't mean that the underlying technology isn't really great. So if you look at cloud, there's a couple of big problems. One is if you're too far away from the cloud infrastructure, right? You're going to have latency issues. It's just going to be a bad experience, right? So what we've done is we've looked at there's all these cloud solutions all over the world. Some are really big, some are really small. For us, we want to give a single point of contact for the player, and on the back end, we can see where that player is. We can then switch them over to the cloud provider that's going to be the one that is best for them. The second part of it is the business model, right? Oh yeah.
You put them with the right. So are you talking about them being close, like proximity
Yep.
to?
Well, proximity. I mean, proximity, when you're online, right, you're talking about latency and bandwidth and all of that. But yes, close. Exactly. Close in the way that's going to give that best experience to them.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's the business model part of it as well, where everybody was like, oh, cloud is going to be the new console platform. We're going to charge $60 to download a game on the cloud. No, cloud is a feature that opens up so many new opportunities in regards to, hey, people can actually try your game, right, before they actually buy it, and then they can go buy it and download it traditionally. So a whole bunch of stuff there with cloud, and yeah. Somebody, you're pointing.
You just go to the mic.
Hi, I just want to ask, you mentioned the Middle East, North Africa, and how do you propose best ways to reach these communities?
So it's a good question. So I think there's a couple of things. One is it's going to come to payments, right? Is a big part of it, and this doesn't apply just to Middle East, North Africa. It actually applies everywhere. Even here in the US, 20% of the players are not using one of the 3 major credit cards or PayPal. But 20% is a pretty big chunk of players, right? When you get outside, you're looking at regions that 50, 60, 70% of the players are not using what we consider default, right, payment methods. So first and foremost, it's using those local payment methods that allow players to actually spend on your game and engage with your game. But beyond that, I think there's, regional distribution. We all know, localization, not just in language, but cultural localization is very important. I wrote a piece about actually looking at different events and whether they're holidays or whatever it might be, in region, and actually running, different promotions or in-game events, or if you're a premium game, just discounts, whatever it might be, that not take advantage, that's the wrong word, that respect and are aware of there's different cultures, different regions have different moments in time that are important to them when people are out of school, off work, and they're more likely to be engaging with games. I think there's a big problem where we kind of have a very myopic view of kind of the Western side, where here in the States, it's like, oh, every year we're going to do a 4th of July promotion and the whole world's going to love that. Well, not really, right? And there's equivalents in other parts of the world that developers just completely ignore, right? And it's like, my God, you've got a huge population that's off work for a week, right? Why aren't you doing something to engage them during that time, right? So I think that's a big part of it. And then the final piece is working with local creators and communities, right? I think there's companies just over-index on working with, again, Western creators, Western communities, without realizing like, oh my God, the audiences, the players there are not listening to, the creators that you may think they're listening to here in the States, right? They have local, folks that they're listening to. So really looking at it in that regard, and that comes to the ease of use kind of thing. Ease of use is an awkward phrase, ease of engagement, ease of connection, whatever it might be. But I think those are all very important. Yes, sir. Not at all. I actually encourage that. I think, look, there are certainly success stories. Escape from Tarkov is one of the best in the industry, right? Where Factorium is another one, right? Where they actually went direct to consumer first, right, before going on platforms. So it can be incredibly successful. I think you got to look at it as your whole sort of business ecosystem. Platforms, the value proposition has changed over the years. They still have huge player bases. They have very ease of use because they have built-in wallets. Discovery is horrible, right, at this point. So I think there's cohorts of players that you can reach on a platform. I think going off platform, though, is a way where you can migrate some of your, more engaged users over to your platform. But more importantly, you can actually market directly to those players and get them into your platform. So what I mean by that is, if you're paying 30%, right, to Apple or Steam or, right, if you go direct to player and you're maybe only paying 5 or 10%, right, for that direct to player infrastructure and payments, let's say it's 10%. You still have 20% of your revenue that you can then use to market directly to players, bring them into your ecosystem. And so many people, if you're marketing players into your ecosystem and you're only on the platform, you're actually acquiring users for the platform, right? You lose them. They play your game, but they're tied into the platform. If you're marketing them directly to your own platform with your own login system, your own community, the ability to communicate and work with them, you have those players, right? So you get much more lifetime value out of them. And the ability, if you're running a portfolio of games, to even grow beyond it, or if you're just going to make more content for your single game, those players are yours, right? And you have that relationship. So, but it's both. I think of platforms now as kind of top of funnel. They're very broad, right? But as you go down the funnel, you want that direct platform that you can either bring them onto or acquire directly into. Hi.
Super quick question. You mentioned the paper. Where can I get that?
Oh my gosh, that was this QR code.
Okay.
So if you do that, so it's our state of play report.
Okay, I grabbed it and it took me to the website and I couldn't spot it.
Yeah, so okay. Full disclosure, it's going to ask you to sign up, give an email, all of that good stuff, right? Yep. So, but it is a great report. We really have, and I'm not just BSing saying this because I'm part of the company. I've seen this report evolve over the years, and it's now at a point where I'm like, all right, there's some real data here, right? There's good information. We've partnered with Statista, who's backing up a lot of it. We have other partners in there that are providing actual data. We use a lot of our own data, right, in this also. Yep. I should also note that beyond the report, we have started doing best practices for a lot of our solutions. So Web Shop is a great example where we don't put it on the website, but if you actually work with us on our web shops, we have a whole team that will give you best practices that we've aggregated from all of the different companies we work with, which is nearly 600 now on the mobile front, doing web shops to help you understand what works, what doesn't work. So we want you to succeed. Anyone else? We good? All right. Yay. Thank you, everybody.